Here we go. Kyle Loomis stopping by. E2C Network. Auburn, unfortunately, another 5-7 campaign, but the recruiting looks much better. So if you can turn the page, Auburn fans, from the regular season results to the recruiting rankings, you'll get a smile on your face like Kyle has right here. Kyle, how you doing?
Yeah, you're right. Certainly, I'm doing very well. I have a smile on my face because the recruiting is basically the main thing that we have to be happy about. Not a great year, as you talked about. It's kind of appropriate that we had Kentucky on before us because probably very similar, very underwhelming years. And the recruiting can certainly make that a lot better, especially when you're talking about some of the areas where we brought in some of these guys. And certainly, if you enjoy talking about rankings and stuff, Hugh Freeze does it again, 2 classes in a row. His first 2 full classes in the top 10 for nationally for Auburn. So that's quite an impressive thing to do, given the lack of on the field results.
All right. So looking at this class, who do you like?
So many. I'm going to be honest with you, Mark. When we were doing our post live stream after the press conference, the more I started talking about this class, the more it became very clear to me how well put together this class was. And I know that may be an overstatement or an understatement because, right, they're obviously filling the needs that they have, the roles that need to be filled. But I just really started looking at some of these groups and really liked what I saw. If you look at the linebackers, for instance, you're going to, if you know what's happening at Auburn, you're about to lose a ton of senior leadership, a ton of talent at the linebacker group, whether it's Eugene Asante, Austin Keys, Dorian Mausi, several others that are probably not going to be here. So there's a lot of opportunity, yes, for guys who are currently there, like DeMarcus Reddick, who are younger and have been kind of making their way up into more playing time. But that leaves opportunities for certain linebackers that are being coming in this class. Bryce Dees being one of those out of Maryland. More on that Maryland story in just a little bit. That was a very interesting thing yesterday as well. You've got Jacaleb Falk, who I've seen kind of projected both ways, an edge rusher and a linebacker. Most people have him listed as a linebacker, and that's actually the brother of Keldrick Falk, the superstar edge rusher at Auburn right now. So that's obviously someone that you want to look at. And our other individual, Elijah Melendez. I don't know if you've looked at this guy. Every picture that he puts of himself is just how jacked he is. I mean, so he just looks like a linebacker. So I really like what I see out of this group. I see a variety of linebacker talent and strengths. I love having another Falk in the fold here at Auburn. We're all about family here after all. And I just got a lot of hope for that group, even though that there's not going to be a lot of senior leadership. It might be an area for Auburn to go find somebody to be a leader in the transfer portal this year to help that group continue to move into that role. But honestly, I was shocked the more I talked about this yesterday, how much I loved the linebacker class for Auburn in this 2025 class. That's probably the first one that stuck out to me.
And so last year was the wide receiver core.
Yes. You certainly, I knew we were going to get there at some point. So let's go ahead and tackle that. The wide receiver core last year was the story. Freeze 4, Freeze 5. If, a 17-year-old, as they love to call him, Brian Williams, decided to flip over to Auburn at the last minute, but that obviously didn't happen. But we're happy with the Freeze 4. 2 things on this. The wide receiver group this year, when you talk about hype, is probably less so just because of the hype that was built around last year's it was named the Freeze 4 after all, with Cam Coleman, with Bryce Kane, with Perry Thompson, and with Malcolm Simmons. You do have 3 that you're bringing in this year. The headliner obviously is going to be, the Smith brothers. Well, now he's called Duke Smith. His name is Derek Smith, but they switched it over to Duke Smith on this official list from Auburn. It kind of threw me off a little bit before we came live here. Derek Smith and Eric Smith coming from Selma. So that is going to be 2 kind of another little family storyline there that you've got to look forward to. And then the other wide receiver, I've lost my place on him in here in this list, and I cannot find him at this current time. But there's another one in there that we brought. Sam Turner to flip from Georgia Tech. But what I want to use this to segue into is what's the big group that maybe should be getting more attention, and it might be the defensive back group. And I kind of put this in my notes of things to talk with you about. Should this be the Freeze 4 or 5 of this year because of how complete this group is. Defensive backs, obviously, you have in a traditional defense, you've got 2 cornerbacks, 2 safeties. I know there's nickel backs, all that stuff. We're just talking about basics here. You have brought in 5 individuals and had an opportunity to bring in someone else as well that did not decide to sign with Auburn on signing day. But these 5 that are here have just completed all those needs and then some. You're talking about cornerbacks Donovan Starr, cornerback Devin Williams, cornerback Blake Woodby, and then safeties Anquan Fagans and safety Eric Winters. So not only have you got one at each spot, but you've got an extra cornerback there as well. I think this is going to be the next wave of great defensive backs at Auburn. And there are already some there at Auburn right now. They're going to be the wave that's currently there. But I'm really excited about this group. Probably the only interesting storyline of yesterday that was kind of like, will he, won't he? Other than Offord, the cornerback who decided to not only flip from Iowa State, but over to Oregon and had Auburn in the mix there too, was the fact that Donovan Starr in this cornerback group was kind of waffling on what he wanted to do. The reports were he was committed to Auburn for a long time. He was going to push back his decision. And then suddenly when Offord doesn't go to Auburn, he wants to do, or at least the day of, he wants to do his decision that day. So you got to kind of think those two were connected there. Either way, it was kind of like a nice little end cap because the signing came during the end of the day press conference for Coach Hugh Freeze. So that was probably the big end cap that we were all looking for and what was relatively a quieter national signing day for Auburn.
Kyle Loomis here from E2C Network, tracking the Auburn football story, but the Auburn athletic story and the Auburn community. It's all Auburn at E2C Network. And Kyle, we're not going to let you go without throwing this one out there because you talk about what's being talked about. What's going to be talked about and is already started, of course, is the pursuit of a quarterback in the transfer portal. Miller Moss is out there, Caden Salter of Liberty. What are your thoughts about that possible pursuit?
Well, in addition to that, obviously Deuce Knight factors into this equation as well. With him being retained, there was some question about would there be a flip there on National Signing Day. So he factors into that decision, but only in so much that he's filling the spot that's vacated by obviously an exiting Peyton Thorne. But there's another spot as well, Holden Garner. So when people ask me, will we take a transfer portal quarterback? The numbers say yes. The question is who it's going to be, in which some of those names that you've brought up, I've heard those same exact things. I have literally no clue, to be honest with you, where they're going to go with this. To me, I really value listening to what the coaches are saying. And Coach Freeze is adamant about trying to focus on building up this team from bottom up, from younger guys up. And so is it time to hand over the reins fully to a Walker White, a Hank Brown, or is it a Deuce Knight? I get the stinking suspicion we're not going to hand over the reins to Deuce Knight that quick. I could be wrong, but there are several options out there. I've seen Miller Moss thrown around the most recently. That seems to be the one that gets the most play right now. Salter is another one as well. But I think we're in for a wild little ride with this quarterback transfer portal situation, but certainly there is room for one, and I expect us to take one.
All right, Kyle, we'll be right there with you. So as soon as they make a decision, we'll track you down.
That sounds good. I'll be happy to talk about it, and thanks for having me.